Sarah Loves to Sew. Welcome back to another one of my tutorials. Today I'm here to show you how to make the apron. So this is a really lovely project to make. It's made with this fabric and it's a linen with a shabby hair print on it, and he's so cute. He's in different positions, different coloured rabbits, hairs should I say. And the apron is a basic pattern where you cut curves for the top. We will be adding some facing for a bit more stability on the top here. We'll be making the straps, and you'll see that they're nicely hidden. There's no raw edges, and the waist straps as well. And we'll also be using the offcuts from the curved apron to add some pockets if you wish. So let's get started. First, make sure that you wind your thread onto your bobbin so it matches top and bottom. So get this lovely fabric out of the box, and you want to fold it in half with the hairs the upright way, and then fold it in half. And then you want to just make sure that the edges are all nice and straight. So this will be the bottom of the apron. So you can either just, if you've got one of these mats and rulers, this is really quick and easy way to do it. Just line up the lines across that way and this way, and just take a rotary cutter and cut the edges nice and smooth. Or if you don't have a rotary cutter, just use a ruler and make sure that you've got a lovely right angle with the fold line, and just snip that edge so it's nice and smooth. That'll be the bottom of the apron that we will turn up as a hem. Now, once you've done that, keep it folded together, and we're going to move to the top of the apron. So it's still folded in half with the right sides together, as you can see. And with the top, just do the same. So you're basically going to make sure that you've got a nice straight edge across the top of the apron as well. So with it folded beautifully together, just use your ruler and do exactly the same on the other side. Either mark a line and then cut along it, or if you've got a rotary cutter, do it that way. So I've already cut those edges, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to mark on the actual curve at the top of the apron. So for that, you're going to need your paper template, which I've got here, and this is the curve that you're going to use. So if you cut out along this line and then just discard the top bit, use the big bit as a template, and you literally will just be drawing around so that you've got this curve marked out on your fabric. So with the fabric still folded together, then just cut along that curve. Now we want to try and keep these pieces, the offcuts, because we'll be using those later. So just cut along that line and keep these extra sections, because we will use those for the pockets later. Okay, so you now have the basics of your apron cut out and ready. So we're just going to put that to the side while we work on the straps. So for the straps, you should have 3 pieces in the kit, and just take one of those straps. So what we're going to do with this is we'll do the same technique that you've seen many times before on lots of my other projects, where you fold the straps in half. In fact, this was how we made the dog lead last month. So you're going to fold it in half, either finger press or iron, and then once you've done that all the way along, you're then going to take the edges to the middle and finger press or iron those in place, and then you do the same with the top bit. Bring those down, press those together, and you then bring those 2 pieces together. Now we don't need to sew over the ends, we're just going to sew it up to the top, because this edge has got the selvage on it and the other edge will be tucked inside the apron. So once you've folded them all up, you then need to sew a line all the way down, just one side, and that will be the straps. So you'll have 2 of the long thin ones and then 1 of the shorter thicker strap, and this will be the same technique that you're going to use on all of the straps. So you fold it in half, open it out, put the edges to the middle, fold those down, and then finally fold them over together and give it a good press, and then stitch all the way along the edge. So you're aiming to get it quite close to the edge, not sort of halfway down the middle. I'll show you on the other apron that I've got here how sort of close to the edge. So the stitches there are sort of just nicely onto the edge, making sure you've got both sides in. So you'll end up with 2 thin straps, which will be tied at the back, and then the next strap as well. Stitching the straps, you need to have your straight stitch setting, and I do it at 2.5 stitch length. So always start with the needle in the fabric, so you can hand wheel that down, and then just trying to stay in a straight line. So I always have my right hand down here, making sure that it's fitting together nicely, and then just gently guide it with the top hand. And you're going to make all the straps the same way, so it's just good practice of sewing in a straight line, keeping it nice and close to the edge. So once you've sewn all the straps, you then need to put the straps to the side and get your apron back. So this time you can open it out, and if you come to the bottom of the apron, flip it over so it's right side's facing down, wrong side's facing up. Now we're going to turn a hem. So this will take a bit of practice, and you need to basically turn up the bottom of the apron by about 1/2 centimetre, and then you're going to turn it up again, so it will be a completely neat hem without any raw edges. So I'll just see if I can zoom in a bit better. So if you like, you can mark it, you can measure and mark, but I just tend to do it by eye, and I finger press, so it's sort of between anywhere that's no more than a centimetre, than 1 centimetre, but whatever you can find sort of manageable to turn it, and then you roll it up and press it down, and then you can pin that in place. So you will do this all the way along the straight hem, because later on we will be doing it along the curves. So it is just go along, fold it, get a little thumb press, and then fold it over again. And then you get a nice neat edge that you can pin down, and then you'll be able to sew it quite close to the edge. And you do this all the way along. So we'll fold it, press, and fold it over again, and keep that going all the way along the bottom edge. Now if you don't want to do it by eye, then by all means get out a little ruler and mark your measurements, but if you're quite happy like I am just to do it by eye, you fold it and fold it and pin it. Okay, so then you want to take that to the machine and sew straight line from the end, do a few little back tuck stitches, and then go all the way along. And it's quite a good measurement, this one, in that my presser foot edge lies against the side, so I use that as a guide to get a nice straight line. Okay, so I've sewn along that hem. Now we're going to do the same with the top. Well, not the same. We're just going to fold it over once this time, because we'll be sewing a little panel across the top here, which just gives it a bit more support and stops it sort of falling open when it's being worn, and also hides the straps that we're going to put on. So you just want to sew that down. So it's just the one fold on the top here. Just make sure it's even all the way along. Again, if you're happier to measure it, by all means you can measure it, but I just do it a bit quicker, just do it by eye. So then you're just going to sew one line of stitches along there. Okay, so I've sewn that. Now the next thing to do is to add the neck strap. So you can try this on yourself, and if you want to make it shorter, if maybe the apron's for someone, a child, or maybe a shorter person, then you can change this and make it a bit shorter. So take the measurement that you want, and the measurement that I did for myself is, I think it was 16 inches, but just let me check that. So I had a little bit under there. I know it was longer than that. So mine is 22 inches. Okay, so on your strap, just measure 22 inches. So there's more here than you need if that's the one that you're going with. So just cut off the end. You don't have to finish the edges because they're going to be sewn in now anyway. And I have the stitching on the inside, and I just hold them. We're going to be doing the same folded edge along the sides. So to get the positioning of the strap, you basically just want to sew it in where it's going to be rolled. So if you're doing 0.5 centimetres and another 0.5 centimetre over, you want to put this in 1 centimetre from the edge. That looks more than 1 centimetre. So it's more like my folds are a bit bigger than that. So if you put it in, it will be tucked in there at about 1 3/4 centimetres from the edge. So you just want to pin that in place and then go across to the other side and pin that one in. So just make sure your strap doesn't have a twist in it, so the stitching will loop round and the stitching will be on the inside on that side. And again, just check the distance. So however you're going to curl this in, I'm going to fold it once, and then when I fold it over, it will be about there. Can you see that? So I'm going to pin that one in position there, and then take it to the machine and sew back and forth about 4 or 5 times, and that will keep it really secure then. And do the same on the other side. So ideally, when you're sewing up and down, back and forth for the straps, you want to keep the stitching within that hem. So if you start, it's quite thick sort of fabric, so I would start in about the middle. I wouldn't start right on the very end, because then it will be difficult for the press foot to get over it. So I'd position it, hold reverse down, go back a bit, and then forwards, and then you're going to hold back again and just go back and forth to the ends of the straps, cut couple of times before finishing, and that will keep that strap on and keep it really, can you see better without the light, keep it really secure. And then we'll be sewing a panel over the inside, which will work as a stiffener for the top as well as hide any unsightly raw edges. Okay, so this is how it's taking shape on the front. We've got the hemmed top and those straps attached. We've got the hemmed bottom of the apron. So now we're left with the side straps and the side of the apron, as well as this curved edge here. So if you want some more practice before you attempt the curve, I would go to the sides, and we do it in exactly the same way. So we're going to be doing the double fold on the side so that we get rid of the raw edges. So I'm just trimming threads from the bottom there. And this time we will be sewing in the straps. So if you have a look at the straps, one end should be the selvage side and the other end is the raw edge. So we're going to tuck the raw edges away inside the hem. So let's do the hem first. Okay, so it's the same way. You're going to fold it once and then twice, and then just pin that in place. So I don't tend to fold all the way along first because it does tend to ping back out even if you press it. So I just do it as I go along, really, always leaving a couple of inches between the pinned section and the bit you're going to next roll. So just trying to keep it as even as possible. And then over it goes. And then press it flat once you've rolled it. So it is a bit of a technique that you get used to. You sort of start with it folded and creased, and then the top layer sort of comes down a bit more like a roll, and then you press it down. So it might take a little while to sort of get this technique down to a T, but it is a really handy one because then when you're making clothes, it's really easy to quickly just tidy up the hems. So once you've done the straight side, we will be looking at hemming the curve, which is exactly the same technique, just on a curve. So if you do that all the way to the end and just pin, you're going to need this bit tucked in, so we won't pin too close to that. Leave about an inch away. Okay, so where we've left that about an inch free, then we're going to just sort of mock up where we're going to be turning the curve. So we'll need to move that pin a bit further up actually because the head sticks out quite a lot on it. Okay, so we will be turning one on that curve and then over again. So this is where we're going to slip in this. So I'm doing it with the stitching on the bottom edge again, and that pin's getting in the way. Just want to poke it in there. I wouldn't put it underneath the roll because then it would be too thick for the machine to get through. So just nudging up against it, and then either pin, or as it's quite thick, you can just clip those in place. So we're going to sew all the way along and catch that strap in. So do it back and forth a few times as we did on the neck strap. Okay, let's do it. So we're just going to hem this side edge. So when you're hemming and you've got quite a lot of fabric to get through, never start right on the end. Sort of give it a good distance away so that you can reverse onto it and you kind of get away from all that bird nesting that happens underneath the machine sometimes when it's very thick. So you can go back to secure the stitches and then you're going on your way, and just keep it nice and flat as you're sewing. So it's quite a nice sort of gentle tension, but I am putting some tension on this so that it will sew nice and flat. So you go along. I'm using the side of my presser foot against the side of the fabric as a guide, just so that I can keep a nice straight line. And then we're coming up to the bit that we're going to sew the strap on. So just before you sew it, make sure that the clips haven't moved or the pins. So I'll give it a bit more just before I come to do it. I am going to just double check it's shoved in there, and it is. So we're going to go over it and over that bit that we've curled there, and we're going to go back and forth to make sure that's nice and secure. And then we're going to do exactly the same. Can you see that? We're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So the next thing to do once you've sewn on the straps on both sides is we're going to go back to the top, and you need to get the piece of fabric that's going to cover the top here. So to do that, we're going to find the right side, if there is one. Yeah, that side's slightly shinier. So put right side face down, and you're going to line it up with that edge of the straps and the edges there. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew a line here. So you're going to need to feel where the top of the apron is, because we're going to be sewing a neat line across there and then flipping this over like so, and then that will just give you a nice tidy edge along the top there. So you can press it with your finger if you want to have a guide, but just flip it over and pin it in place. This will also give a bit of support to the top of the apron, so that when you're wearing it, it doesn't tend to do that annoying thing of opening up at the top. Okay, so you can fold it if you like, and then just give it a finger press to get a guide of where you're going to sew. So I'm just going to follow that line and sew along there, nice straight line. So when you're sewing this, you want to make sure that you're still within, your line is still on the little green hem. Otherwise there'll be a gap between that. So just go to the edges, sew over the handles and keep going. In a straight line. Might need to readjust it as you come up to it. And back and forth. Okay. That's my little scissors. And then what you're going to do is just check that you've got it in the right place on that side. Yes, you have. And then you can iron it so it's a nice neat line. Okay, so I've folded that over and pressed it down, and now I'm just going to do these side curves. But before we do that, we need to fold up the bottom edge of this. So mine's slightly off kilter a little bit, so now's your chance to straighten it up. So you're just going to fold the bottom edge again. So do it as neat as you can and try and make it as straight as you can. You can check it by pulling it down and just press it down until you feel it's the right measurement for you. So this will be on the inside of the apron, so it won't be seen, but it's still quite nice to have a little, just use pattern weights to hold that in place. Still nice to have a nice straight line. So you want to pin that one in place. And then we will sew this hem down, just a line across there before we do the sides. Okay, just sew a straight line along there, nice and close to this edge without going off. So I've sewn top and bottom now, and just flip it over and check how much surplus you've got here, and you're going to trim that, because when you curve, when you fold the hems, you don't want loads of thick bits here. So if you've got any bits hanging off, just carefully cut that lining fabric, and it will just make it a little bit easier for you to do your hems, just to reduce the amount of fabric that we've got there. So then the next thing to do is to start doing the hems. So you might want to start at the bottom where you've already done it. So on the curve, it's the same, literally the same thing that we're doing. So you fold it and press it and roll it and fold it again and pin in place, and then you do it all the way along the curve. So fold like so, excuse me, and then fold it again and pin it in place. So you might want to use slightly shorter pins to go around the corners, and once you've done this side, roll the other side as well, and then take it to the machine, and you'll just be sewing a line but with a slight curve this time. So it's just a bit of steering practice for you, so it shouldn't be any more difficult than sewing on a straight line. You just have to know where you're going, I suppose. So I'm going to clip that top bit there and then pin here, so we've got a nice neat edge here, and then just pin the rest of it down. So yeah, just take your time and just keep following that curve round. Okay, right. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top of the apron, and I'm going to start quite a way in from the edge because we've got a lot of fabric folded over there. So you might want to use an owl or a pointy tool here just to help feed the fabric through if it gets stuck. But I'm going to reverse first, go over the chunky bit, and then I'm going to come forward. And it's getting a little bit stuck there, so I'm just going to hand wheel and just try and lift that a little bit to help it. I'm going to actually pull the strap to help it get through. Once it's over that bump, it's on its way. And then just carry on all the way down, taking out the pins as we go. Just get my ladybird pin cushion. I've still got a few of these ladybug pin cushion hand sewing kits left. I've got 2 left of my old stock, so do get in touch if you want to buy one. They are really handy and quite cute. So when you're sewing on the curve, you are just making little adjustments as you go along. So it is just paying attention of what's coming up. So use both hands to guide it slowly around the corners. And then we're on the finished straight. And go back and forth over that little bit there just to make sure it's secure. So that is one curved edge done, and you want to repeat exactly the same technique for the other side. Excellent. So now that you've sewn those side curved edges, we're going to put the apron to the side and start working on the pockets. Now the pockets are obviously optional, you don't have to have them. I quite like having pockets in the front of my apron. So if you want to work on the pockets, you need to get the pieces that we put aside earlier when we cut out the apron front. So for these, line them up, edges up together, right sides together, and just cut a nice straight edge. So brilliant if you've got one of these mats, then you can line up the edges, and using one of these rulers you can just get a nice straight edge, because that will be the top of your pockets, which we're going to hem. So likewise, if you want to cut, well, that's dead on straight anyway, or you can cut a nice straight edge. Then you are going to sew these 2 pieces together down here. So the opposite side to the curved edge, you're going to sew centimetre seam allowance straight stitch down there. Okay, once you've sewn that line, you just need to snip your threads, and then you can open out the pocket. Now we will either have one big pocket, or you will be able to sew down the middle and make it 2 pockets. Okay, so before we sew the pocket onto the apron, we're going to need to smarten up the edges. So first of all, I want you to zigzag all the way around the curved edge. So just change your stitch on your machine to zigzag, and this will just finish off our edges for us. You don't need to do the top because we're going to fold roll that down, but you can zigzag around there. It's really good practice at zigzag around a curve. When you come to the seam in the middle, if you open it out and lay it flat and then zigzag over it, and then just as you would if you're straight stitching around a curve, just keep looking at what's coming up, and I sort of feed it round with my right hand, gently guiding it with the left, and this will just help stop the edges fraying when you're washing your apron. And then we can snip those threads, and then we're going to hem the top of the pocket. Okay, so with the seam, you want to open that up all the way like so, and you can, if you've got one of these little hand rollers, they're quite handy. So in the same way that we folded the hems on the other, start at the middle and fold it down by the same amount, 1/2 centimetre or a bit bigger. And then we're going to do this twice because we don't want any raw edges, because this will be the top of the pocket. And fold it down again, and then either finger press like this or iron, and then we can pin it in place, ready to be sewn. So don't forget to switch your machine back to straight stitch, something I always do. My first couple of stitches after I've done zigzagging, I always forget and end up being zigzag. So turn your machine back onto the straight stitch and then sew a nice neat line along the easy straight edge of the pocket. Okay, so sew that down to secure it. Okay, so that's sewn, and now for the next bit it's some more folding. So where we've zigzagged that edge, just fold it over so all the zigzag stitches are on the inside, and try keeping that curve as smooth as you can as you go round and press. Now, if you have got an iron handy, it might help you to iron this. And as you go around the corner, you might need to do these extra little folds just to get the corner bit nice and flat. And do that all the way around, because we're going to then position it on the apron and sew the pocket in place. So it's a lot of folding hems, this project, which is really good practice, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. I think you learn to use sort of both hands as you go, and it's just becomes quite a quick way of doing it in the end. Okay, so now you get your apron. Decide whereabouts on the apron you want your pocket, and then we will pin it in place, making sure that the edges that we've just pressed down stay. So try your apron on, or whoever's going to wear it, try and get the right sort of size person, and then position the pocket so you can use the centre fold line. That should still be visible. If not, fold it in half again and press that line, and then you can line that up with the centre seam of the pocket, however high up or low down you want it. And then once you've positioned it in place, you then need to fold over your edges and pin them, and then we're going to be sewing on the curve again. So there we have it, the two pockets I've stitched in the ditch. So we've got the pockets in place, and that's it, the finished apron. Done.
We're gonna keep it low key, keep it softly spoken, with no strings tying you to me. I'm happy in your company.